Okay, well, welcome everybody to the Hydroplate Week of Celebration. We are so blessed to have Dr. Major Coleman here. The first time I was exposed to him, he was on Hope at Night, and he destroyed evolution. Man, I can still remember how you offered, what, $20,000 to anybody who would debate you. And so, welcome aboard, Major Coleman. We're so glad
Thank
that
you.
you're here.
Good to be here.
Amen. So, did anybody ever take you up on that $20,000 offer?
Unfortunately, not. People are were always surprised. They said, "Well, man, that's a good thing. At least you got to keep your money." It wasn't about keeping money. It was about engaging.
Yeah.
And wow, since we've started there, we should really talk about it. Half of that money was mine, and the other half was Walt's. So,
Really?
yeah, so we put that together. I put up 10 grand, and Walt put up 10 grand. And I had two cashier's check, mine and Walt's, there on Saturday morning at the State University of New York at New Paltz. And there had been a tremendous amount of discussion in the student newspaper in the weeks leading up to that. So, and as everyone knows, Walt had tried for 30 years and not been able to get a debater. So I was really hyped and hoping with double the money that we would really be able to get something going. And I had been wolfing and bragging for several weeks on the university campus and had the sheet there ready for somebody to sign. And then for nobody to show up, boy, I was livid.
Right.
I mean, I was really, really ticked. I'm saying, you do all this talking and stuff
Yeah.
outside of the ring, but when
Yeah.
somebody wants to engage you, you won't even show up. I mean, man, I was fighting, man. And it was the weeks after that, at the university campus, people would stop me and ask me. They say, "What happened to the 20 grand?" And I'm saying, "I went home with it in my pocket."
Really? What would have they had to do to get the 20 grand? They'd have to
All
step
they
up to,
had to all they had to do, Brian, was to sign. Well, now, okay, now wait a minute. Let's first of all, you had to qualify. That is, you have to have a PhD in a natural or physical science.
okay.
So I had plenty of people, high school science teachers who wanted, just wanted some money. And I'm saying, look, no, that's not adequate.
Right.
Really, to understand what was going on, we're really saying, look, I'm putting my name and my reputation on the line. Are
Yeah.
you willing to do the same thing?
Exactly.
And that all and we had an evolutionary studies department on campus, and the State University of New York has a statewide evolutionary studies department. So I figured with that kind of depth,
Right.
certainly we would find someone with the courage to come forward. I'm saying, am I that scary? I mean, is it that? I mean,
What, what
really?
what is your educational background, as long as we're on that?
I am a lawyer by training. I have a JD. I have a PhD in political science and a doctor of juridical science in jurisprudence. That is the science of law. So my educational background is social science and law. It's
And the
however,
scientists were afraid of you. The scientists who knew the science didn't
and
want to
I
talk to
said,
you.
look, and I tried to tell them, look, who am I?
Exactly.
Who am I?
Yeah.
Surely, with all, geology, biology, chemistry,
Right.
astrophysics, all of you together, surely you would be able to actually crush me, and I would be so devastated. Can you
Yeah.
imagine how I would feel for that to happen in public? All of my students would say, "Boy, Major, I mean, really, they just mopped the floor with you." I mean, believe me, I would never come forward again. Look, I'm gonna have
Well,
to
it's
be honest.
pretty telling that they don't step up to the microphone. That their
Look,
silence
look,
speaks volumes.
look, the evolutionary studies department, they didn't get to be in evolutionary studies by being stupid. All right, is they know, of course, I've been on campus for a long time. They know that I'm a fierce debater. That is,
Yeah.
and all the science isn't going to help you once you get into the ring. That is,
Yeah.
my job is to destroy you and to laugh about it. That's my
That
job is to, yeah, that's my job. But of course I didn't want to show that face because I really wanted to get someone to sign. Um,
Praise the Lord for people like you, Major.
I
Hold their feet to the fire, put them in uncomfortable positions and let's see
well,
what they do.
I failed. That's all I can say. And
No, you didn't fail. You didn't fail. No, you showed that they're afraid to step up to the microphone. You showed that, and if somebody does want to step up to the microphone, Standing for Truth has a really good YouTube channel where they line up debates all the time. So if there's any evolutionists out there,
the
it's good to see
genius,
both sides. It really is.
the genius of Walt's challenge, and I really want to say it was my mentor, Dr. Walter Brown. The genius of Walt's challenge was that the basis of it was a written debate. So in a
Mm,
verbal debate, of course, you can lie, and most lay people will not know that. But in a
mhm.
written debate, of course, if you do that, that is, the literature is going to destroy you,
Right.
and everyone will be able to see it. And that was the great fear.
Oh
And of
yeah.
course, as scientists, they knew, as trained scientists, they knew that when it came down to the empirical evidence,
Right.
that they could not back that up on paper. And
Exactly. And yet
and
that's in the journals, but in the high school textbooks, it's all, cut and dried. It's we got it all figured out and they don't. And you exposed them. So praise God for that.
I told him, I said, look, you better come with all the science that you've got, radiometric dating, carbon 14, brimstone radiation. I'm saying because we're going to show up Saturday morning and we're going to be smoking. And that again, the weeks after that, people would stop me on campus and they'd ask what happened. And when I told them that I went home with the money in my pocket, they were always shocked at that. I mean,
Mhm.
because they thought, how could how could all the and I offered to give the money to the Department of Evolutionary Studies. How could
Yeah.
they not take
Yeah.
that if your argument was so strong? So
Exactly.
we made a lot of headway.
Oh yeah.
Um, our program on campus was very uh, forceful. Here is for you to see is a maybe I'll back it up.
Noah's Ark.
This is a 1 to 220 scale model of the arc.
Yeah.
My model that I take on campus is 1 to 48. Now,
Yeah.
this only weighs a few ounces, and so 1 to 48 is about 5 times larger. And
Yeah.
you'd say, well, how big can that get? It gets 12 feet long and 300 pounds. That's how big it gets.
Wow. Yeah.
Multiply it by boom, boom, boom 5 times. Boy, believe me. Um, and I made that model because at the first presentation that I attended with Walt, he had his HO model, scale model there, which is about 1 to 84. And I was so impressed with that. I had never seen how big the ark was, and
Oh
to
yeah.
see it
Yeah.
with trains and trucks, I said, "Good night!" It was gigantic.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to do my teacher one better, so I made it O scale, which is twice the size. And then I realized, you know what? Now I understand why Walt didn't do that. I'm saying that was a mistake, um,
And people can
because
see that on that Hope at Night. You had that arc there, right?
yeah, unfortunately, I hurt my back.
Oh no.
For weeks after that, I was walking with a cane. Again, it weighs 300 pounds. It's made out of white oak. It's not a small
Oh
thing.
boy. Oh boy.
And to load it into, I had to load it myself. Once I got to Hope at Night, we had studio personnel that could help me get it out of the
Yeah.
truck.
Yeah.
But to make it to scale, and that is, and I'm saying absolutely to scale in terms of the width and
Yeah.
everything. And the eyewitness accounts that we have showed that the Ark was not, unlike the tourist attraction in Kentucky, the Ark
Right.
was not made out of lumber. No, no boat like that could survive the flood. It was made out of hewn logs, so there was no frame on the inside.
Hmm.
Um, my guess is the logs were it was tongue and groove construction, and they were slid together by heating tree sap mixed with cotton and then filled it with water so it would swell. So it was incredibly strong.
Wow.
So to make a 12-foot box out of white oak with an inch thick. You can imagine how it gets heavy pretty
Oh
quick.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Um,
You
and so the students really loved it.
Oh yeah, you had mentioned that you were that Walt Brown was your mentor. What are some of the experiences that come to your mind when you think of those days walking with today's Isaac Newton?
You know, Walt shocked me. So I was a graduate student at the University of Chicago at the time, and Walt's program was advertised on the Moody Broadcasting Network. And so I went to see him. My son was in kindergarten at that time. So just to give you an idea how long ago that was, my son's a professor with a PhD in his own right.
Well,
But he's in
congratulations.
kindergarten. That's how long ago that was. And of course, Walt always remembered me and my son there. Um, and I remember I was so shocked at the information and the evidence
Yeah,
that Walt gave. And Walt was always Walt was always tough. Walt was Walt was there was I don't know that Walt had a light side um, to him. And I would every what impressed me so every question I would put to Walt, Walt had a scientific answer for it.
sure.
Um, Sometimes it was frustrating because Walt was such an excellent scientist.
Yeah.
And as I prepared my program, and I would ask Walt questions, particularly about alpha decay in radiometric dating.
Hmm.
And you would think that because my field is not in natural or physical sciences, that Walt would go easy on me. No way, no, 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 Major. He says, hey, Major, no, he would just tell me flat out, no, Major, that's wrong. Read it again. And I'm saying, hey, well, can't we cut to the chase? Why don't you just give me no, read it again.
Oh wow.
You're going to master alpha decay. And I want
Wow.
you to know why. And why
Yeah.
does having too much helium and too much whatever the mother and daughter element is, that is
Right.
whatever it degrades to,
Yeah.
if it's uranium lead, that is lead and helium or whatever,
Yeah.
potassium argon, why can't you have both of those elements in large quantities, and why do they contradict each other? And he wants to make sure that I know my stuff backwards and forwards. So, I learned it really well. I'll tell you one thing about Walt that it scared me. And when I had my programs, Walt would tune in and watch.
Ooh, good.
And I told my students, you get nervous when I'm testing you. My teacher is watching me do his program. Imagine how I feel.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
nervous too.
Yeah.
Um, and Walt told me, he said, Major, that was an excellent program. And
Oh great.
to hear that coming from a scientist at that time, the greatest living creation scientist in the world,
Yeah.
tell me that my program was excellent, really pushed me forward. It really, really affirmed me, and that's what Walt was like. That's
Wow.
what he was like.
So was that the
What a
power
man!
station? Was that the power station program?
Yes, yes, yes. That was the Power Station program, which we've done on campus, which was an all-day program, 4.5 hours.
Whoa.
It
Wow.
was just like Walt's program, 4.5. Well, no, we didn't do 4.5 hours straight, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We broke it up into three 90-minute sections and then 90 minutes of question and answer, just like Walt's programs. Walt's programs were all day.
yeah,
Um, and we provided lunch and breakfast and lunch for the students. And Brian, I don't want to, I can't take credit because I was simply copying
oh yeah.
my mentor. That's all I was doing.
That's the yeah, and that's that I'm not the scientist, I'm the megaphone. And I think we need more megaphones out there to tell people what the smart people are doing, because if if nobody knows what they're doing, it doesn't help. So
Yes.
yeah, it's
Um, Walt,
yeah, I think but you stepped up to the microphone. There's value in that. There's a lot of value in that, and then sharing stuff that opens the door to creation and the hydroplate to other people. I think there's a lot of value in that. So thank you for studying and for being able to do all those the power station. Now is that the powerstation.org or
that's
how
right.
does
That's powerstation.org. we will be besides Hope Channel. That is, I've been on Hope Channel twice and in the Bahamas. I'm in Miami right now, but next year I'm kind of a. I mean, I'm originally from New York, and Miami is strange to me. I still can't. For a long time I kept thinking, what are those palm trees doing here? And then someone told me, they said, Major, the palm trees belong here. You don't.
Well, you were in a free state, so there was something to that.
Yeah, Miami is strange, but next year we'll be doing our program again in Durham, North Carolina, where I
Oh,
recently left. So we'll be having a program, and we'll make sure that you know about it. And it will be, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be a tribute to Walt and to hydroplate theory, which is just fabulous. Walt did me a great service by telling me how he got started, you know. And that was really good that he he's driving across. He's at the Air Force Academy, and he's driving across um
Kansas.
yeah, where the Air Force? It's in Colorado, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's driving across Colorado, looking at the mountains, and he hears um Alfred Lee's father, Alfred Lee Sr. Now, this is strange because Alfred Lee is an artist, a fabulous artist. And Alfred Lee drew some of the graphics in Walt's book.
Oh, really?
Alfred was my art teacher in college, okay? So
Wow.
I knew Alfred very well, but I did not know Alfred's father.
Yeah.
Alfred's father, Alfred Sr., was a pastor, and it was Alfred Sr. that Walt heard on the radio in Colorado talking
Really?
about Noah's Ark. I mean, man. And
Sure.
so I said, so when Walt was telling me that, I'm saying, well, I know Alfred very well. He's an artist. He said, well, his dad. So Walt knew both the father and the son. I didn't know because was about 20 years older than it. So that was a generation before me.
Hmm.
And so Walt, he stops the car. He gets on the telephone. I mean, this is before cell phones, you know.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
going
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And he calls the radio station
Yep.
and he tells them, he says, look, I'm looking at the Rocky Mountains. There's no way to get water to cover the Rockies.
Yeah.
And so Walt starts studying,
Yeah.
and after he retires from the military as a full bird colonel, you know,
Yeah.
at 42, 43, I mean, that's an incredible accomplishment in itself.
Oh, yeah.
Um, then he takes every course at the University of Arizona in Tucson. I think it's in Tucson. I think it is. I think the University of Arizona. Yes, it's in
With Bob
Tucson. Somebody
Dietz?
correct me.
He was
Not
taking
Arizona
classes
State.
with Bob Dietz. Is that what you're getting?
Yeah, yes. It's Tucson. Getting my geography. Yeah, Arizona State is in Phoenix. That's right. University of Arizona is in Tucson. Okay, I've got it. Takes every yes, Bob Dietz. He takes every evolutionary course there that they have to offer, and of course, studying, working nearby one of the co-founders of plate tectonics. You can
Yeah.
understand why he got so good
Oh, yeah.
hydroplate theory
Yeah.
and why he corrected
Yeah.
the plate tectonics and
Yeah.
did a fine job.
And that's one of the big critiques against Walt is he's not a geologist, but man, he studied at the feet of Bob Dietz, who coined the term seafloor spreading. And they met every Wednesday and discussed things. So that's, he had quite the education. He might not have had the degree, but he had the education to,
Brian, that is not a critique of anyone because, and you have to, when you really think about it, um, so I'm a trained jurist, I'm a lawyer. What if
yeah,
I said to you, you cannot discuss the law because you're not a lawyer? You
right,
can't govern the country because you don't have a degree in political science.
right,
That is, science is for everyone. That is, the job of the scientist is to teach people how to use
yeah,
science, not to tell them what to think.
oh
So
yeah,
it's a very elitist
right,
view. That is, I'm a political scientist. I don't have to have a degree in natural science. Science is not just about natural or physical sciences. It can be about social sciences. It's the
yeah,
scientific method. What
right,
is the scientific method? The use of observation,
yeah,
record keeping,
yep,
controlled analysis of the empirical world, which is falsifiable by others. So
Mhm.
we don't just have natural and physical sciences, we have social sciences, we have the science of law, and where we can apply these things. Anyone who is trained to use critical thinking can evaluate the most highly trained Nobel laureate scientists, and they should.
Exactly. We're just not doing a good job of teaching people how to critically think. We're doing a real good job of teaching them, what to think and how to memorize, and kids don't like that. But if we showed them how to think and give them a couple of different theories to critique, I think they would enjoy it a lot. I had the eighth edition of Walt's book, and just last year I gave it to a professor at St. Cloud State because they don't have a theory for Grand Canyon, and she knows that. And so, but I got an email 2 days later, and she said basically you can pick it up at the office. Walt's not a geologist, so she didn't want to even look at it, which is really holding science back. It really is. This consensus, this
No one
groupthink
who
is,
does not have both a law degree, a PhD in political science, and has passed the bar should be able to vote in this country because you're not qualified to understand government or law. What if I said that?
it's absurd. It's just absurd.
You should, Brian. I don't want you to see you at the polls voting, Brian.
Right, right,
I
right.
don't want to see you. You're not qual. I mean, that are you crazy?
Yeah, yeah. So your son was in kindergarten when you met Walt, and
My
then
son
you
was
stayed in touch with him, and
I
you
still
would,
Walt would come through Chicago every year, and
yeah,
I would go and take my son to the programs every year. So I mean, and I was in Chicago for 8 years, and he would see my son getting bigger and bigger.
yeah,
And then after I graduated and started teaching, sure, I would stay in touch with Walt as he went through the editions, various editions
yeah.
of the book, and and of course they got bigger, more extensive. And of course, I always had questions, and Walt would write to me personally. I still have his letters.
Oh, praise God.
We would talk on the phone. Um, One of the biggest issues I had after the fifth edition was Walt. We talked a lot about the Atlantic. What was going on in the Pacific?
Yeah.
As Walt began to address those things, I was simply astounded um, at how he used science and addressed every single issue. Why is the Pacific called the Ring of Fire? Why is
Mhm.
it twice the size of the Atlantic? Why is it
Mhm.
twice as deep? Where do volcanoes come from? Where
Mhm.
do comets and asteroids come from? Just an incredible I have to, Brian, I know we don't have time um, to go on because we're talking about decades and we're trying to fit it into a few minutes. But Walt was one of the first to really address the issue of origins generally, creation versus, excuse me, evolutionism.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Stick it to him. Creation science versus evolutionism. But he was one of the first to really address forcefully the racial issue there. And that when you're really talking about evolutionism, um, you're really talking about excuse me, a racist point of view.
You are. Yes.
I pushed it further than that because what was talking about the science, and I'm a trained social scientist. And when we look at the stats, many people don't know this, but it'll be coming out in my articles probably this year. Evolution is a theory of origins primarily held by whites,
Oh, really?
primarily held by whites.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
and its strength is whites in the academy. I mean, in college. That's
Sure.
where now generally whites are split about a third, a third, a third. That is a third solid creation, a third theistic evolution, and a third hardcore evolution.
Hmm.
Blacks are the only racial group in the United States that the majority are solid creationists.
Really?
Now, they don't know the science, but blacks are the only racial group which accept the biblical story of creation as valid. And of course, it's not hard to understand the reason for this, the strength of the black church in the black community. Black spirituality is through the roof. Now, I'm not saying that Blacks understand the science behind it. In fact, they don't understand it at all.
Sure. Sure.
um, but and so when we're defending and supporting evolution in the courts, you're also making a racial statement.
Yeah.
And that's what's extremely dangerous. You're saying, look, we're going to support the origin theory of whites and not those of blacks. And I'm going to make that well known as we move forward. We really have to, that is, this is not about one racial group and what they're taught.
Right.
And that evolution is basically, and it started off, that is Charles Darwin, Alfred Russell Wallace, and Herbert
Yeah.
Spencer, all Englishmen who were living in the primary slave trader, England. They were the primary slave transporter, excuse me, and they grew rich off of slavery. And all of them had anti-black views.
Oh,
Well,
no doubt.
naturally,
No doubt. Oh yeah. I mean,
and I would say,
that's what the elite was teaching 100 years ago. And this evolution mindset where you're not fit to reproduce. They sterilized what 60,000 people, and yeah, it's a black stain, and but that was the scientific elite that was talking about it. So we have to be very careful about listening to the scientific elite.
Walt was one of the first and bravest, very courageous, to point these things out. So I learned those things from from Walt. I some of the funniest stories. So Walt was doing his presentations, and he Walt would pass out a survey about his presentation.
Yeah.
And I would always say, the presentations are very excellent. But Walt was never satisfied with that. He would say, "No, that's not what I want." And I'm saying, "Well, what do you want, Walt?" He said, "If there's something wrong with the presentation, I want to know what's wrong with it." And I'm saying, "Okay, well, now you're saying to me, you're saying, Major, I want you to be picky." And he
Good.
said, "That's exactly what I want. That's
Oh,
exactly what I want."
yeah, most people don't want to hear what they do wrong. They want to hear what they do right. Yeah, I think that shows Walt's humility. He wanted to
Yes, and that's
improve
what he was
over and
like. So,
over.
so I said, "Okay, well, okay, okay. Picky you want, picky you get." I'm saying these are the only two things. If I had to pick something, the only two things that I could say that was wrong with this presentation. I said, some of the photos in the presentation, there were cars that looked like they came from the 60s. And I said, the last half of the video, he was showing a video, the last half, I didn't say the whole video, the last half, there were no black people in it. And he
Ooh,
said, he said, now, fine, Major. So the next year, all of those things were gone. I'm saying, well, what do you want? I mean,
yeah.
that's how intense he was, that he would not accept second best,
Hmm.
slipshod. It was always come at me with everything that you've
Hmm.
got. And that's what made him such a fabulous scientist. Never
Oh yeah.
shied away from anything.
Yeah, and
I've heard a lot of people criticize Walt. I
yeah.
haven't seen very many who were willing to get in the ring with him.
Right, right, and he welcomed it. If he had something wrong, he would correct it. He
Yes.
welcomed the correction, and so yeah, just an incredible book, an incredible work that he's done. Hopefully the ninth edition will be available for Christmas. This is a proofreading copy of 600 pages, but yeah, it's right real close to be on the press. Hopefully, people will be able to get them on Amazon if they don't have the hardcovers ready. But yeah, that is incredible testimony. When Walt would speak in Chicago, how big were the crowds?
So we were at Moody Church,
Yeah,
which is a little bit less than 4,000, I think.
yeah.
Um, and the downstairs of the church was always filled.
Wow.
Okay. So it was always several thousand people. Walt Walt taught me a lot about how and what would go in, he would get really personal with me and tell me, how he set up his programs, even financially, that Walt did not take donations, that Walt, and this is how so I'm following the Walt Brown model. that Walt rented the church. He paid for it. Paid for
Wow.
it. Um, then he would ask the church leaders if they wanted to debate. They were responsible for finding an
Yeah.
evolutionary scientist who was willing to debate. Walt paid the standard honorarium to that scientist.
Really?
And then that they were ticketed events. And that's the model that I followed. Walt drove around the country for 20 years with a pickup truck and a 15-foot trailer,
Wow.
with his 6-foot model of Noah's Ark in the back. And this was before PowerPoint.
Right.
So whew, it was that was a lot of work. Um, yeah, so Moody Church, it was always filled. Most of the time it was in Moody Church or a large church in the Chicago area.
And he was able to pack it, and so people are interested in this. I mean, to get the crowd there, he must have had a pretty good promotion, or people just,
Yeah,
they
well,
just
it was,
wanted to.
of course, the Moody Broadcasting Network, so it was always and in
Oh,
the whole Chicago area. So that was another part of Walt's model. That is, he's renting a large church
yep,
in a large city
yep,
with radio programs, so the word can get out.
right,
So and advertising months in advance.
yep.
So and then of course Walt was so fabulous, okay,
Well,
in
yeah,
front
yeah,
that and knew how to work a crowd and with the science that if he did it once, the next time he came through, it would just be packed. And so that's the way it always was coming through through Chicago. You had to be careful though, because if you could learn enough just to get yourself in trouble.
sure,
So I'm a
sure,
student at the graduate student at the University of Chicago, and Stephen Jay Gould
yeah,
came to visit the University of Chicago, right?
oh yeah,
And I'm a Walt Brown student, and so I don't back up from anybody, not even
yeah,
Stephen Jay Gould.
yeah,
So I go to the lecture and I challenged Gould, and I'm saying, "Have you read Dr. Walter Brown and hydroplate theory?" I was, Gould was. I realized why Gould was popular. He was funny.
sure.
He made fun of some of the false ideas of evolutionary theory, and he attacked racism and evolution. He was liberal politically,
And he came up
and
with
so
punctuated equilibrium, right?
yes, yes. So even though most evolutionists don't accept punctuated
Yeah,
equilibrium, because they're saying what we need is uh, lots of time. So it was kind of strange. But watching Gould in front of a crowd, I could understand why he was popular. He was able to weave in popular culture into his lectures.
sure.
However, nevertheless, he's still an evolutionist,
Yeah.
so hardcore. And so I challenged him with hydroplate theory, and I was surprised that it unnerved him. He was pretty, very steady and easygoing. That it really unnerved him, and he responded to me. He said, "No, I haven't read it, and I don't see why I should read it." You know,
Wow. Hit a
he was
nerve.
really offended. He was offended by it.
Wow.
And for Stephen Jay Gould, I said that someone of his stature in the evolutionary community should be so rattled. You know, people need to pay attention to that.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep. You hit a nerve. Yeah, it's time to keep poking that nerve. That you've hit a thing. We are getting close to the end of the interview. And people can find you at the power station dot or power station.
Powerstation.org, and then they can send me an email at major@powerstation.org. We will be posting probably near the end of the year. We'll be posting our presentation that's going to be in Durham, North Carolina, probably in June, and they'll be able to go to Durham, or they'll be able to watch it online. And I want to wish you and everybody at the Center for Scientific Creation good luck as you publish the ninth edition.
Right. Yeah, and that thing in Durham, maybe that'd be nice to have a hydroplate conference there. If you're there, maybe some other people. I don't know what the logistics would be, but yeah, let's get to Durham, North Carolina, and to check you out. And yeah, that's so blessing, such a blessing. Do you give churches or do you give talks at churches or anything like
Yes,
that?
yes, I do. If you go online, if you look at me online, you can see the programs that I did in the Bahamas and at Hope Channel. We don't always get to record all the programs that are at churches. All the churches, they're not always equipped to
Right.
record these things, but the larger programs are.
Oh,
Brian,
that'd
I
be
want to say in
fascinating.
closing that at this point, in terms of the science, we have no other theory other than hydroplate theory.
I
When
know.
we're talking about the geology of the Earth, we have no
Right.
other viable theory. That's it.
Right. And we just need to get it into the mainstream. Hopefully, we get it into some creation museums and creation organizations start talking about it more. There is a museum in Nebraska called Broken Bow, Nebraska that has it. It's called the Boneyards. So we'll see who's going to be second. But yeah, what a blessing. You're right. This is the best time to be alive because there's so much evidence against the Big Bang and evolution like never before. And this information is more easily accessible than ever before with the internet. And now you've got people like you making it understandable like never before. So all we need is just a few more people in the battle and just get this snowball rolling. So thank you
Amen.
again so much, Major Coleman. And
Thank you, Brian.
yeah, I just pray that God opens more doors for you to reach more people because you've got a valuable message that has eternal consequences, and just may God bless your efforts.
Thank you so much, and be good, and we'll be in touch, Brian.
Absolutely. Praise the Lord.